and we're back to talk about histograms. We're going to use the same data set as in the last exercise, MA schools, which from the AER package. At the top of the file, you can load that in if you're joining this after scatterplots, or you can go back and watch the video on scatterplots if you want to see how we started. I'm going to share my screen again. And so to create a histogram, what you want to do is use the command hist. It's just a shortening of the name histogram. What a histogram is showing the distribution of data for a single column. While a scatter plot, you can look at two columns at the same time, the relationship between two things. A histogram can only look at one thing at a time. And so this is going to be a histogram for the incomes in MA schools. And that's sort of the median income for the parents at all of these schools. And so what this is breaking down is a histogram is automatically creating groupings for the data. These aren't sort of the individual values, but what the histogram is calculating is how many observations are there between 0 and 10, how many observations are there between 10 and 15, between 15 and 20, 20 and 25, on and on. And it's automatically within its command doing that for you. It's figuring out what are sort of appropriate groupings for the data. And so it's showing you both what are sort of the high and the low values in the data, what's the middle, where does the data bunch together, and it gives you this idea. It's really similar to a summary table. It's giving you a lot of the same ideas, but giving it to you visually. So this is the basic output of a histogram. You again get the default name of the column and data set on the x-axis. On the y-axis, you're going to get frequency. That's just telling you that what the y-axis is showing is what is the frequency of observations within each of these values. You get a default title here with the histogram of the data set and the column, and you get sort of empty white bars. And so we can customize this in a few ways. What we're going to do is we're going to change the title. We're going to change the label on the x-axis. We'll add some color to it. We'll add more bars. Yeah.
Oh, I was just commenting on the color. Good color choice.
Oh, thank you. You're working ahead. Yeah. Blue is one of my favorites. We're going to add more bars to the graph. The default is typically to create 10 bars, and we'll show how to add more or fewer if you want to. We'll adjust the height of the y-axis. It's a little odd to me that the default height of the y-axis is often below the top value with the histogram. You can see that there are more than 100 in this range, and so I often like to adjust that upward. And so I'm going to pick the title first. Main equals MA school parent incomes. I'll change the name on the x-axis with the option x loud, and I'll make that equal, it shouldn't be income, it shouldn't be salaries, it should be income. I'll set the color to steel blue. It's a very nice color, and it's one of the few names I remember, so I use it all the time. I'm going to change the number of bars on my histogram with this breaks. Breaks is just referring to how many breaks do I want in the data, how many different ways do I want it to be chopped up. So this is going to be 25 different choppings of the data, and I'm going to move the y-axis up. Should probably move it higher than that, to 130. Yeah.
So when you say 25 breaks, does that mean there's going to be like 26 bars because it's talking about the number of divisions?
I think it's just the number of bars. We can count. I don't actually know. All I know is that there are more breaks. And some of the breaks are empty. And so it may be either one of those. I don't know. I've never gotten that specific. That's why I didn't set the y-axis so high. So what you can see is because I have added additional breaks in the data, the most common category is shorter than before. And so I was basing this on what my largest category was here to make sure that it fit. But I do not need to make it that high. I can do it lower. And so this gives sort of a better picture to me of how the data is distributed.
So I have a quick question here. first of all, excellent color choice. Second, if you wanted to like put this in a paper that you're working on, is there like a export to PDF function, or I don't know if this is something you're going to go over later, but it just occurred to me now, like how do you get this visual out of R?
That's a great question. So yeah, we can talk about that now. So writing this in a markdown means that it's sort of already exported. When you knit the document, you have it in the document if you're writing the entire paper in markdown. If I was going to write this, I wanted to put it into a Word document, I would copy this and I would do it in an R script. And if I go to R script and I run this, it will pop down into the plot viewer down here. And there's export here, and so I can save it as an image, or I can copy it to clipboard. And if I say copy plot, I can take it and put it in a new, in a Word document.
Oh, cool.
So weirdly, so I just counting the bars, it looks like there are 20 bars.
That's what I counted.
Interesting. So it will, I don't know. Sometimes coding is just magic.
So what if I do 50 breaks?
So at some point it will stop giving you more bars because it'll sort of humor you. It'll say that it's giving you however many breaks it is, but it will say there aren't enough different observations to do that. So there's 220 schools. If I did 300 breaks, it would still process. I don't even know where I'm in this document. I think, but it's not going to give me 300 because there's only 220. And you see that some of these are the same, so there's clearly fewer than 300. If I did 3, right, it's going to humor me. It's going to say, sure, I'll do 3, but that actually doesn't work because there's too many in each category. And so to some degree it's helping you, but that does give you sort of less sort of specific control. It's more, do you want more bars or fewer?
That's very weird.
Yeah, some of coding is simply magic. We can go back to the default. That's what you get. Okay, so time for exercise 2.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
So you had mentioned that this is already in a markdown document and that you could just be writing your paper in a markdown document. When you're like, as far as your research workflow goes, do you tend to write in markdown in R, or do you write in Word or something and then export those graphs?
I write in markdown documents with a colleague that also writes in markdown documents. But if you're working with someone that doesn't write in markdown, it gets hard to communicate. So we export it, and I would put it in a Word document. You get used to the writing style as it goes, but it's not always the same.
Yeah, I mean, markdown is really easy to write in. I was just curious whether most of your word processing happens in R.
Yeah.
R Studio, rather. Thanks.
Donnie?
Okay, so should I share my screen?
Yeah. Do you have the data loaded?
Yes. So, okay. So I did my, can you guys see my whole window? Should I do like that?
I think so, yes.
Okay. I was playing around with yours and I made it break 10,000 times. I don't think that's 10,000 actual ones, but okay. So create a histogram for the salaries at my schools, change the title, the number of bars, and the color. Okay, so we'll do histogram. Oh wait, I'm almost pulling a Jake here.
Don't forget your code block.
Did I not?
Code chunk.
Code chunk, I got it. All right, so now I'm creating my histogram. So hist, and then we need to give it the main variable that we're looking at, which is the income in my schools. Oh no, salaries. Salary. And then we're going to give it a title. So main is, in fact, Jake's face. And then the number of bars, which I already know is complete nonsense and magic, but we'll give it 473 breaks. And then the color.
Red steel.
Is there red steel?
Probably not.
It would be steel red, right? And then I think that was it, right? Is
Yeah.
this right?
I don't know what error you'll get using a color that doesn't exist. You'll probably be told that. So what I think that is referring to is that when you put in breaks, you put it in quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't a word. You want a number.
Okay. We have many breaks. Steel red is invalid.
So if you want a red, why don't you go with tomato 3?
I do want a red. Tomato 3. So I'm not seeing the tomato, but I guess that's probably because my bars are too small. So let's just do 1. There we go.
That is a beautiful histogram.
Did we do it, Eric?
As minimally well as possible.
There.
Tomato 3, also a good color.
There are a lot of good colors.
Yeah.
You can spend the rest of your days just looking for the perfect color you want. Okay, so that's it for histograms.
Cool.
In the next video, we're going to load in a new data set on guns, and we're going to work on line graphs.
Nice job, Donnie.
Thank you. Thank you.